Hey guys, it's Cassie, Dust to Roses. Welcome back to my channel. So this morning we are continuing the antique craft journals, and before we get started, I just wanted to take a minute and kind of show you guys the three journal covers the way they are now. I did add a few extra details to the first one that we were working on together. I added some closures and did a little bit more coffee staining to the cover and added the little key that I mentioned. So the second one is kind of a B6 sized-ish journal. And the other two covers are definitely textile covers, so they are completely covered in some kind of textile, whether that's wool or the upholstery fabric, which came in your guys' kits that I put together. Sorry, I only had 5. So that fabric was actually the deciding factor on how many kits I made, because I only had enough to make 5 kits plus keep a little for myself to make that little journal that you guys see. So yeah, I'm thinking about, because I had like 15 claims on those kits, thinking about making up some kits that just include either different textiles or are kind of papers only. So yeah, like I had plenty of the paper things for the most part, but just did not have enough textiles to make up more than I made. Okay, so I'm going to kind of pull some papers. I think I end up pulling around 25 sheets from my little mini stash that I've made for myself to work from. Again, I always try to keep like just the supplies that I want to use at like close at hand, so that I don't get overwhelmed just digging through my stash endlessly. And it kind of limits my palette. So yeah, I have decided to keep them in this big red plastic bin. But I'm not going to show it to you guys because it's kind of obnoxious to sit on my desk. So yeah, I'm just pulling out papers. The right stack are papers that I'm going to use, and then the left stack are going back in the bin. I'm just moving them out for ease of searching, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna pick out some papers, and then we will be splitting the papers up into two signatures. And but yeah, I want to apologize in advance for the chicks. They're getting a little bit too big for their box at this point. They are ready to move to their house, I think, because it's pretty much warm all the time now. To their chicken coop, sorry, it's not a house. Lennon calls it their chickie house, so that's kind of what I call it. But yeah, their chicken coop. And but yeah, they're just they're a little anxious to get out of the box, I think. Plus I've been, like, when it's not raining, the reason I haven't moved them out to their chicken coop yet, in fact, is that it's been raining for like the last 3 days straight, and it's not supposed to stop raining until tomorrow. So hopefully we can transition them in the few days that it's supposed to stop raining. Okay, so I did pick out, I think, 5 or 6 sheets of coffee stained paper, and now I'm picking out like some of my more antique pages. And guys, I have all my papers together for all 3 of my journals, and let me just tell you, it is so hard not to just like throw all the good stuff into one of the journals. And I guess I could have, because I mean I have more, so I could have, thrown all the good stuff into this journal, but I like the challenge of kind of like bringing just plain coffee stained papers up, or like enhancing them, I guess. So yeah, here I'm just separating out the papers and kind of deciding which papers go in which signature, and I kind of do it based on size and also paper type. So I'll try and put one page with like some illustrations in one signature and then the other in the other signature. I also tried to evenly spread my coffee stain papers. And yeah, it's just kind of something I kind of learned, I guess, from making lots and lots of journals. But yeah, I try to evenly spread the wealth, I guess, as far as like paper type and yeah. So I am gonna go through and just kind of do the initial folds on my pages. I do end up changing folds as I go along. But this is just kind of to get the process started on like putting all the papers together in the way that they'll be in the journal. So this video is very much like creating the base signature of the first signature of the journal. So the next video will be making the second signature, and yeah, so I've decided to cut this paper bag open. I do collage on one side of it for two purposes: to add some like rigidity, make the page more rigid. I think rigidity is a word. I don't know. Sorry, I was like going back to my like spelling and vocabulary days. Yeah. In high school, I was on the spelling and vocab team and went to state competition for it. So, like, I'm a super word nerd. Anyway, that just kind of gave me flashbacks of that. So on these coffee stain pages, since my journal cover is 6x9, I want to kind of extend pages out to be the full 9 inches, or 6 inches rather, as close to possible. So I'm kind of skewing the folds on the, or staggering, I guess is a better word. There we go again with the words. So staggering the folds a bit to where I can extend the pages out to be kind of the full dimension of the journal cover. So again, I have a small desk, and so I'll be shifting pages around. Sorry if that is like confusing or frustrating to you, but that's just kind of the nature of my desk. So yeah, I am also kind of in the process of folding, like deciding on how I want the opening fold to look. And I know I want to use this antique page as the opening of my journal. So when you first open the journal, that's the first thing you see. And so I'm just kind of deciding like, okay, well, what do I want to layer with that to create kind of an interesting opening page? So I did fold that page down to be narrower than the journal. And that way I can get a really nice layered look from my journal pages. So I'm toying with the idea of using this like long ledger sheet. I actually got it in a Happy Mail earlier this week from Maggie. Maggie Journals. I'll link her profile, her Instagram and YouTube. She has a YouTube channel. But I decided to support her on Patreon. Patreon is something that has seriously blessed my life. And like it kind of makes what I do possible. So making videos and something, making videos takes up a lot of time, you guys. If you don't have a YouTube channel, or or if you do, you can definitely sympathize with like how long it takes to record and edit and do voiceovers and all the things. Even uploading is kind of a hassle because you have to like type out all the text and anyway. So it's a long process. It's much longer than just the video takes to watch. So however long a video takes, it probably took like 5 times as long to edit. So Patreon really makes it possible for me to continue to make videos for you guys. And so yeah, when I can, I know that other artists have Patreon accounts kind of for the same reason, to like make their craft sustainable and make them able to kind of offer tutorials and stuff for you guys too. So when I can, I try to support other artists. That was the whole point of that. So yeah, I have decided, sorry, back on track. I went on a little rabbit trail about Patreon there. I have decided to use this French document page as the second page of my journal. And I really hate like I really hate when a journal has like all the really good papers right at the front and then the rest of the journal is just kind of blah. But I do totally agree that like the opening pages should be just stunning. And so I usually try to use a couple of my really, really good papers right at the front. And that way it creates like this really gorgeous opening to your journal. But then I also try to also include really beautiful papers throughout my journal pages. So in attaching this paper, I wanted pretty much the whole page to show, and yeah, so I used one of those staggered fold coffee stain pages and just did a tip-in. So on the long side, or the short side goes up against the page that you're tipping in. And it took me like a few times of folding it over and like trying to figure out how to do it. But I tipped it in on the opposite side of the fold. So obviously if you glue it in on the side that is the same side as the page, it's going to be kind of hinged where the glue ends. And so by tipping it in on the other side of the spine from the page, it allows it to move freely as if it were just another page bound into the journal. So I always think about like, okay, I want the glue to be on the opposite side of, so like here you can see the page itself is going to be folded, and the glue is on the outside. I don't know how to explain this better. So it's going to be folded as if it's just this really tiny page on the opposite end, like on the other side of the stitches for the spine, for the binding. So there you can see like how it's kind of attached as a tip-in, and yeah, it just becomes like this really short page on one side of the spine. So here's one of the pages that I'm planning to refold. I just feel like it was just so tiny inside this big giant journal cover, so I'm refolding the page to add to it. And I kind of got this idea from Heather Rosehill Paper. Her centerfold pages were like this, like she used kind of a smaller page and just added to it. And so yeah, I'm gonna eventually do that with this centerfold page. But Yeah, in this process, I do flip through kind of my signature a few times and just kind of see how things are going. Since this is such a new style journal for me, I am actually kind of uncomfortable. Yeah, like this is kind of outside my comfort zone, and so I'm just like really trying to be careful to make everything fit and look right, and but really, like my biggest advice as an artist is to just let yourself go. Like stop thinking about it and just work intuitively. Because when you do that, it allows your right brain to turn on. So the right brain is your creative side, and the left brain is like your logical, overthinking side. And so when you sit there and like audition things over and over and over and think about it, you're like forcing your right brain to take the back seat to the left brain. So when you stop thinking and just work intuitively, your right brain actually has a chance to kind of take over. So yeah, that's a little psychology nerd stuff for you. I did word nerd, now it's psychology nerd. But yeah, so creatives sometimes have a problem shutting off the left brain and letting their creative side take over. But yeah, I'm deciding to use some of this antique hymnal page to extend that centerfold page out. So this is kind of the idea that I borrowed from Heather Rosehill Paper. So I am just going to paste that down. I'm toying with the idea of adding a pocket or like a corner tuck to this page, but I decide let's not overthink, let's just do what I know I'm going to do and just let it flow from there. And so yeah, gluing that down, I do end up folding it over just because this page is kind of fragile. So I kind of fold over the page into the center. Sorry, it's still very much allergy season. I'm trying not to sniff and stuff, but one sneaks out every once in a while, sorry. So yeah, here's where I fold it over and just kind of create like a reinforced page edge there. I am going to use my paper tape. The paper tape is from Sharika, and so is this French telegram actually. So I mentioned in the first video that the kitchen theme journal was a design team project for Lisa of Crafty Lisa's Vintage, and this journal is very, very, very much, so much a design team project for Sharika Postal Love. She is so gracious and sends me a design team pack every month to play with, and I've been kind of greedy and like, yes, I make my design team projects, but then some of it I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful, I can't use it. So this is the journal that gets all the things that I have been like, oh no, I can't use that. That's too pretty. And yeah, some of it gets turned into digitals, which I think still just gives her like so much credit for providing such gorgeous things. But yeah, I use it in digitals, like in designs that I make. But yeah, this journal is just going to be filled up with all the original gorgeous things. Yeah, so I'm just using a little bit of glue to hold this paper tape in place. And it does two things. It kind of helps that original fold, which was there to begin with, like that was where the page was folded to start. And since I'm refolding it, I want to kind of reinforce that original fold to where it's not constantly trying to bend at that point. And also it serves to reinforce the spine. So here I'm going back to this postcard as like a little pocket and decide against it. I do eventually use the postcard in the journal, like in this signature actually, to add like a little tuck spot and a fun little tab. Since both sides of the postcard are really gorgeous, I didn't want to lose the whole thing. Yeah, so now I'm going to start collaging the bag, the paper bag. So yeah, again, go back to what you know needs to be done and then let the rest flow from you. So I know I need to reinforce this bag, and so I'm just deciding like what papers do I want to use to do that. So I'm not sure if I want to add a pocket or if I want to just collage on it, since it already is technically a big pocket. Yeah, so I do end up just collaging, and I use some gold, like bookmaker's paper. I don't know what to call it. M paper maybe. Bookbinder's paper. I don't know. Okay. So I do use some of that to reinforce the spine. Here it is. This paper. This gorgeous paper. So I just tear off a piece because I want it to feel kind of organic, which I feel goes with the journal theme really well. So yeah, I'm landing on this French wine label and this really pretty antique book page with the golden paper. So I pre-fold my spine piece, and I almost started to glue it down, and then I remembered that I wanted it to layer over the top of the other pieces in the collage. So I'm just going to trim down the book page a tiny bit, and then glue those pieces down. Nothing super fancy. The only piece of advice I have is just don't glue over parts that you were planning to let show. So when I glue the label down, I actually covered over the top of the book page, which was something that I wanted to show. Like I wanted the title to show and the book page number. But yeah, I end up kind of covering that up and have to try and move the label, and yeah, it's just kind of a pain. Like if you just pay attention, I'm talking to myself, by the way, if you just pay attention and don't glue things down in the wrong place, then you won't have to move things. So yeah, then I don't know why I felt like I had glue on my desk. But yeah, now I'm going to actually glue down one side of the spine, and I'm trying to pull the label up again, but the glue is set at that point. Because I wanted to glue the gold piece under the label, but it's fine. I just end up gluing it on top. Gluing the gold piece on top, actually. That's what I meant. Yeah, so I glue that piece down, and then we will collage the other side of the big pocket. So on the other side of the pocket, I'm going to do something different. I felt like just having two collage sides was kind of boring. So yeah, I'm toying with the idea of making a pocket again out of this handmade paper, and I decide against that. Yeah, so I pull out this vintage prescription slip, and then I found this book about Texas backroads in my stash, and I just thought it was so perfect. Like, I love this book. It has these really pretty illustrations that I guess the artist and author of the book went driving on all these Texas back roads, like from hill country all the way up to, or down to the coast and up to Dallas pretty much. So like the I-35 corridor. But it was all back roads, and he would stop and like make sketches of the countryside and talk with people who own property, and it's just a really, really cool book. And it's literally called Backroads of Texas, and it has all these hand-drawn maps in it, and it's just a super cool book. So I wanted to include a page from that, and so what I'm doing is kind of fashioning a closure for the pocket, and also adding like this really cool piece to my journal. And I just love the sketch on the bottom. Like I'm very much a fan of like pastoral sketching. And yeah, so I just wanted to include that here. And I'm just tearing off a little bit of the bottom of the prescription slip. So I'm going to glue that down. The edge of the paper bag kind of has this tapered corner, and so I did not glue all the way to the end on the prescription slip, but instead like added the glue under to make sure I don't glue my bag shut, I guess. Yeah, so now I'm deciding like how I want to hold it closed. I knew I wanted to make a closure for the journal or the pocket, but I wasn't sure how to hold it closed yet. So I'm going back to what I know I need to do and gluing on the little gold strip to the spine of the paper bag. So this paper that I'm using is actually very, very thick, and which is good because this paper bag is a giant pocket on both sides. So it's going to have some weight to it. And that's like a piece of advice I guess I have for you guys too, to add some reinforcement to pages that are really heavy or thicken them up somehow near the spine. So now I'm deciding like how I want to hold it closed. So this little flap is kind of like a fold out, so you can do some secret journaling behind, like on the little part that folds out. And also it's like a closure for the pocket. And I'm deciding like what I want to use to hold it closed. And I decided this is the perfect spot to add like a little tiny bit of red, since that's kind of my accent color for the journal. I can't just do neutrals. I tried, guys. It just doesn't work. Yeah, so I decided to use like this mini playing card to add a little tab to hold the pocket closed. And literally all you do for that is to glue the part that you want to attach to the page. Obviously glue that part down, but leave a little section unglued, like not glued, and that's where you would tuck the flap under. And that's just a really, really easy closure option, or like something to hold down, like a fold out or something like that. I use it all the time in my journaling as well, because it's really easy to add after the journal is made too. So now here's one of my flip throughs that I'm doing. I'm at this point I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's so many just plain coffee stained pages that I'm gonna have to break. And so with that, I decide to go ahead and break one. So yeah, I do a little bit of page reordering as I'm flipping through, and pulled out one of my coffee stain pages to kind of make a double pocket. So yeah, I'm kind of on the pocket steps now. Every journal I make kind of has the same order, like I'll fold the pages, make the pockets, do the stitching, but I do change the order ever so slightly as like depending on the journal. So this journal has 2 signatures, and so I'm going to go through and fold all my pages for one signature, kind of add the pockets and set like the standard for the journal for like the page bases, I guess. And yeah, so on this I am making so it'll be a double pocket on each side of the little mini page. I don't know what else to call it, like a page. So I'm using the structure of the page itself. I folded it kind of hot dog style, hot dog style, long ways, down the kind of off center. Well, you guys can see it's kind of folded off center, and I'm just adding some collaging to the pockets to make them a little bit more interesting than just coffee stain paper. And then on the opposite side, I'll use that service card that I had pulled earlier to kind of create the pockets on the other side. So here's where I'm deciding to use that. And I use a circle punch to kind of create like a thumb hole, I guess. I don't know what you call them. I call them thumb holes. They're like the little notch for you to pull the page out or whatever you have tucked inside out of the pocket. So yeah, I'm just going to ink up the edges a little bit because it was very, very distressed around the edges already. And then when I cut the card, it kind of removed some of that. So yeah, at this point I'm looking for my circle punch. I don't use it very often, so I had it tucked away in a box off to the side of my desk. So looking for it, here I found it, and I'm just going to punch a little semicircle out of this card, and it ends up being too big. So I'm like, oh my gosh, that's huge. And at this point I decided actually that I was going to trim it down a little bit more. Didn't actually do it, but I was thinking it at this point. Like, it's way too big of a circle, and I wanted something smaller. So I do punch just as kind of like the test. Punch out just a little notch from one side of the card. Or the pocket, sorry. And yeah, so I'm like going through and kind of punching everything and trimming things down to the right size, and yeah, that's much better. So I trimmed off some more of the card and just kind of repunched the circle a little bit, and I feel like that thumb hole is much better. Yeah, so now I'm gonna kind of like finish punching, and I use the first one as a template both for the card pockets and the pocket that's made from the page itself. So I just hold up the first one that I cut or punched and use that as like the template to line up my circle punch. And then I'm just going to glue everything down, and yeah, the final step of closing this pocket up will actually be stitching, and I'll show you guys how I do that. But yeah, here's where I line up the pocket on the other side. Yeah, so now you can kind of see, it reminds me of like a bifold wallet a little bit. Like it just folds in half and then in half again. And that's how the pockets are formed. So yeah, just gluing everything down. I will ink up the spine a little bit just because I felt like the coffee stain paper is so white. And then at the end of like putting all the signatures together, before I stitch anything, I'm going to go through and kind of coffee stain a little bit. I know some people like they coffee stain everything to start, and then and then others coffee stain after everything is kind of put together. So obviously some of my pages are like pre-coffee stained, and others are not coffee stained. Others are just like naturally patinaed. And so yeah, I like the varied like textures and hues of the color, like the antique color. So I'm going to go through and just do some detail coffee staining is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, now I have to repunch the hole because I had glued on some pocket detail, like collaging. And so I'm just going to go through and kind of trim everything up, and then I think I'll be done with this. So yeah, I had to pause. I had to like feed the dog. So yeah, I'm just going to put that back in the journal where I think it will go. And at this point, I am going to do another flip through and actually test the signature in the journal. So I'm going to pull the cover out here in a second and just see how the pages fit inside the journal. I know some of the pages are going to be a little bit bigger than the cover dimensions, and that's totally fine. Like, that's kind of the effect that I'm going for. In fact, as we go on, I am planning to embellish the pages further, but I just wanted to create kind of like this base standard for like how the signatures will be constructed, and hopefully this has been kind of helpful for you guys. Like the I don't know, like the romantic journal maker takes a dip in the like really neutral kind of coffee stained craft journal making. It's a little bit different. So yeah, I'm just playing around with this craft envelope, and I know I want to add it to the journal. I want to use it to create kind of some visual interest, if I can talk, visual interest, and also it creates kind of this tuck spot on one side and a flip out pocket on the other. So that's like the easiest way to add some extra storage to your journal, is to just add in an envelope. Junk journaling 101. Okay, so I'm refolding this dictionary page a little bit. This is one of my French encyclopedia pages. And yeah, then I do end up adding, flipping through again. Guys, me and my flip throughs, I left them all in because I just thought it would be amusing for you guys to see just how many times I flip through a journal. Yeah, so I'm going to add this card back in. I want to create some layering effect with the card. And I do end up using it right here, I believe. And I wanted one side of the card to create kind of a tuck spot, or a pocket rather, and the other side to kind of create this really pretty tab, since the postcard itself is just really, really beautiful, I think, on both sides. I didn't want to lose that. So I'm using the side with the actual message to create the pocket, and then the other side acts as a tab. So that's it for this video. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Would love to hear your feedback, suggestions. Obviously, this is new territory for me. Otherwise, if you've enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and the thumbs up because that super duper helps my channel. Until next time, I hope you guys have a really great day and happy crafting.